What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. The Oklahoma Sooners are up next. Oklahoma coming off a pretty up and down year last year, going 6-7 overall in their first year as an SEC football team in 2024. They had a pretty tough schedule though, so that's kind of the reason why Oklahoma kind of had a pretty tough season last year. The defense was mainly the strength of this team from last season, but the offense was so inconsistent. But you look ahead to 2025, I think this offense will be upgraded a little bit. I think they'll be a decent offense, not a very explosive offense, but they'll be decent enough. You got a pretty good upgrade at quarterback in John Maytier. Never heard of the guy, but I feel like he's going to be a pretty big addition for this team. I heard some good things about him and sometimes some bad things about him, but I think he'll be actually a pretty big upgrade at this quarterback position for Oklahoma. I mean, offensively, they added a good amount of additions in the transfer portal, and I like the addition at wide receiver for this team as well. So yeah, this offense definitely will be much better compared to last year. Defensively, we know how good they're going to be on that side of the football every year. Brent Venables, a defensive background kind of guy, knows how to get it done. So yeah, this Oklahoma team could be a pretty talented team heading into 2025. And here's a look at their schedule for 2025. It's another pretty tough schedule when you play in the SEC, of course. And again, this team was 6-7 last year in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this Oklahoma team for 2025. They're going to kick things off with Illinois State on August the 30th. That should be a pretty easy win there for the Sooners. You kind of, figure out what the new quarterback is like in here for this Oklahoma team, and John Maytier. I think he has a pretty big start here for Oklahoma, so I think the Sooners do win against Illinois State, and I got this team starting off 1-0. And then there's that big game at home against Michigan in week number 2 on September the 6th. This is a big non-conference game. This is a game that really kind of decides which team is going to have a pretty good way the rest of the way, and then for a team probably that's not going to have like the best year, but still a pretty good season, but not a team that's going to probably contend in their conference the rest of the year. But yeah, you look at this Michigan team, a lot of hype around this team with Bryce Underwood, the freshman quarterback, obviously a pretty good recruit there at the quarterback position, and I think their defense also will be pretty strong. I mean, offensively, I would probably give the advantage to Michigan just because they have the better running game, but I think it really does come down to whichever defense can definitely, step up to the table here in this game. Again, I look at both defensive teams. I feel like they're just pretty even on both sides of the football. I mean, not both sides of the football, but just defensively. And like I said, this game when I did my Michigan video, I did say it kind of came down to whichever team that I do trust at the defensive, side of the football. And I do trust Oklahoma a lot more than Michigan's defense. I think Brent Venables also with his defensive background. I think that's going to be the difference in this game. Plus, they're playing at home, and also Michigan with a freshman quarterback in his first ever road environment. I think that's going to get to them. So I think Oklahoma beats Michigan here on September the 6th in week number 2. I don't want to say it's an easy win. I think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive game, but I got to go with Oklahoma here just because I do trust their defense a lot more. And I also got them beating Temple here on the road September 13th. So yeah, pretty interesting. They're playing a non-conference game against a group of 5 team on the road in Temple. But yeah, I got them winning in that game, and that's going to put them now at 3-0. After that, they open up conference play against Auburn on September the 20th. This is an Auburn team that a lot of people think they're going to be a lot better this year. I think they will be. And how about this? How about this story? Jackson Arnold going up against his former Oklahoma team, going up against his former, teammates and everything. Yeah, that'll be an interesting storyline there. Again, I think Auburn's going to be pretty explosive on the offensive side of the football, but you look at the defense, I still have some question marks about the Tiger defense. I don't think it's going to be a really talented defense. I think it's going to take some time to kind of, really upgrade that defensive side of the football for this Auburn team. I think Oklahoma's game plan in this one will definitely be able to run the football and kind of waste the clock down and keep that Auburn offense off the field for as long as possible, and I think it will be the difference. And I also like Oklahoma's defense to keep it with this Auburn offense, and I think they'll kind of hold them to like low scoring points. I still think Auburn can like score like 27 points in this game, but I think Oklahoma playing at home, running the football is the difference, and I'm going to say that they get the win here. So I'm going to go with Auburn to get, or actually Oklahoma to get the win. That's going to put them at 4-0, and then they actually get a bye week before playing Kent State. That's not a really good spot for a bye week, in my opinion, here for the Sooners. Or you kind of rather have it before playing the big Red River rivalry game against Texas and Dallas, but they do play Kent State. That should be a pretty easy win. Kent State, one of the worst, teams from last year in all of college football. So yeah, I got Oklahoma winning that game, and that's going to put the Sooners now at 5-0. So potentially they could come into this Red River rivalry matchup against Texas undefeated. Both of these teams actually could be undefeated by this point. But yeah, they play Texas next here on October the 11th. Always a big game here between these two teams in the state of, in Dallas, Texas. It seems like the underdog team always wins this game, and obviously Texas is going to be pretty good. They have the most talented roster, in my opinion, in the country. You got Arch Manning with a lot of hype coming up at quarterback. So yeah, this is definitely kind of a game that I kind of do trust Arch Manning a little bit more than John Maytier. I don't think John Maytier is kind of ready for this big kind of game, against Texas. I think he'll definitely make his Oklahoma team a lot competitive than it was from last year. Yeah, you look at last year's score, Oklahoma did not have a chance at all to win this game because their offense was just so inconsistent, but this year with the upgrade on the offense, I think this will be a lot closer of a game. It could really go either way. It could be a high-scoring game, or it could be a low-scoring defensive game. I'm going to say it goes into a low-scoring defensive game, but I think Texas overall, on paper, they're definitely the better roster, and I think they're the more talented team. And plus, Arch Manning is a guy that I do trust at quarterback a lot more than John Maytier, so I think Texas does get the win here. But again, I'm expecting a close game here compared to last year's game, but that's going to be Oklahoma's first loss of the season. That's going to put them at 5-1. And then they play a road game against South Carolina on October 18th. Pretty tough place to play here, coming off of a pretty tough loss against a Texas team from last week. And then you go on the road to play South Carolina the next week. Yeah, that's a very tough place to play. South Carolina beat Oklahoma pretty easily last year. I'm kind of expecting it to be a closer game this time, but I just feel like South Carolina's running game is going to be just too much here for Oklahoma's defense to handle. Yeah, they can probably stop Lenore Sellers from, scoring a bunch of points, but I think South Carolina, though, is not the better team, but I just like their defense a little bit more in this game. So I think South Carolina playing at home is pretty much the difference as well, and I think South Carolina does get the win. So I'm going to say that Oklahoma comes in here, let's say they were a little bit beat up after that Texas game from last week, and they come in a little bit sloppy against South Carolina, and that probably will cost them here in this game. So I'm going to go South Carolina here to win this one. That's going to drop Oklahoma now to 5-2. After that, they'll play at home against Ole Miss on October 25th. I feel like the Rebels are going to take a step back on the defensive line. That's obviously a big concern for the Rebels. I do like their secondary, so maybe they take away the Oklahoma passing game, but I feel like Oklahoma definitely will have a big advantage here by running the football and wasting the clock down and keeping that Ole Miss offense off the field. And you look at last year's game, Ole Miss did not score a bunch of points on this Oklahoma team. I believe they only scored like 26, but if, Oklahoma's offense just was, consistent last year, they probably would have won this game. But this year, they're playing at home. I do expect them to get revenge on this Ole Miss team, and then also running the football will really be the difference. So I think Oklahoma does get the win here against Ole Miss, and I got them improving to 6-2. Then they play a road game at Tennessee on November 1st, a Tennessee team that's going to have a pretty solid offense like they always do under Josh Heupel. Defensively, I do like their secondary a bunch. Defensive line could be a concern, so maybe Oklahoma can run the football in this game, but it's in Knoxville. This is a pretty tough place to play. I kind of had a really tough time predicting this one. I thought about picking Oklahoma, but I'm going to go with Tennessee here just because of the home field advantage. I think it will be a low-scoring defensive game just like it was last year. A late touchdown probably is the difference. I'm going to say that Tennessee does get the win, and that's going to drop Oklahoma now to 6-3. And then they get another bye week before playing Alabama on the road on November 15th. Kind of a pretty good spot for a bye week before you play Alabama. Obviously playing a pretty tough game against Tennessee last week, you kind of want that extra time to prepare after another road game. Alabama, obviously, though, they'll be out for revenge in this one. I think this Alabama team is just going to be too much for Oklahoma to handle. I think their defense can probably keep them in this game, but still, Alabama is the better team, and I think Ty Simpson probably is playing really better by this time for Alabama, whoever the starter is. So I think Alabama does get the win here, and I'm going to say that they give Oklahoma their fourth loss of the season. After that, they'll play at home against Missouri on November 22nd. This will also be another revenge game for Oklahoma. You look at this Missouri team, I talked about them taking a bit of a step back on offense. Defensively, though, their defense will be pretty decent. It could be like a top 4 defense in the SEC, but I think Oklahoma running the football could be the difference here in this one, and I think this will be probably a close game. I think it probably is a low-scoring defensive game, but I think Missouri, they will come up short here in this one, and I think Oklahoma does get revenge on Missouri from last year. So I think Oklahoma gets the win. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma here in this one, and that's going to put them at 7-4. And then after that, they close things out with LSU at home on November 29th. I already picked LSU to win this game. I like this LSU Tiger team a lot, defensively and offensively. Defensively, it's really going to come down to their defense, but I feel like their defense will be a lot better this year. They added a bunch of additions in the transfer portal. They got Harold Perkins back at linebacker, probably one of the best linebackers in all of college football. Offensively, they do have some concerns on the offensive line, so maybe the defense of Oklahoma can take advantage of that, but I think LSU definitely, the passing game is going to be probably the difference here, and I kind of trust Garrett Nussmeier a lot more than John Bates here, and I'm going to go with LSU here to get the win. So I think Oklahoma does come up short here to pull off an upset against the Tigers of LSU, so I got this team finishing 7-5 this upcoming season in 2025. I think that's a pretty fair prediction. I can definitely see this team going 8-4 though, but it's really all about that Michigan game to kick off the year. If they probably lose that game, then it's probably going to be like a 6-6 or even a 7-5 type year. But if they win that game and probably win one of these road games against either South Carolina, Tennessee, or Alabama, this team can go 8-4. But I'm going to go with 7-5 here for this team for 2025. So that's my prediction for the Oklahoma Sooners. Give me your prediction for this team down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.